Eric Muadeth, Muadeth.com, with the U.S. market analysis for the weekend of October 31st and November 1st, 2015. Take a look at how market closed on Friday. A little bit of a down day, pretty much across the board. And we take a look at the performance for the week. We see that the S&P 500 was up 0.2%. The Dow was almost unchanged, up 0.1%. The Nasdaq was up 0.43%. And for the month, we see that the Nasdaq was up the most, up about 9.3%. Great month there for the market. Take a look at the Dow's performance for the month. The Dow was up 8.47%. S&P 500, which was up 8.3%. Let's take a look at the charts. Let's begin by taking a look at the 3-year weekly chart for the Nasdaq. And we're going to go back to the weekly here. The first thing we're going to be looking at is this line here, connecting the previous lows, the lows in 2012, weekly closing lows of 2014. Extend that and you can see that the market is coming back to test that line. So if that becomes a backtest failure, then that might suggest that from around these levels, the next swing trade more than likely could be down. Now the other view is based on the RSI on the weekly for the Nasdaq. If you take the highs and draw a straight line, should be something like that. You can also see another reason why the market could be stalling around current levels, because the RSI is coming and making contact on this line here, which is where the RSI has been stalling over the last couple of, let's call it about 2 years or so. RSI has been finding resistance on this line. And so until such a time as the market can clear that resistance, one has to assume that around here we see some resistance in the price. Market has to pull back based on that resistance. If you go back to the recent break, so the break took place right there, and that break did bring the market off the highs here, and we can see that this is also a level where the market is being tested. So the break level there is being tested. If this is not cleared, and if the market can clear that resistance there on the RSI, then we have to assume that the next swing trade more than likely is going to be lower based on the RSI resistance. Price is going to have to come down a little bit, maybe even to test some of these weekly closing lows or to test the intraday low. Who knows? Otherwise, if you're bullish and you'd like to see the market trade higher, then it needs to clear that line of resistance. So we haven't seen the market clear that resistance on those two lines. So again, two lines. Number one, on the top side of the weekly RSI, and also this line here. Because the market hasn't cleared that line, we have to assume that that suggests that for now, more than likely after a nice swing over the last 3 weeks or so, that the next move in the market should probably be lower. Let's take a look at the Nasdaq Daily. If you take the highs on the daily from here, from December of 2014, going to the highs of March of this year, you can see as of right now the market has come in contact with that level there. That might be suggestion that around here the market could be stalling also. We see that the market had a rejection and was unable to move above 69.1 on the daily, suggesting that this is probably where the market could pull back. That's one view. On the daily price channel break line, so previously we had broken below this, as you can see, and that break right there led to a sizable drop here in the market. So we can draw a line from there like that. And so as long as the market is holding above that previous break level here, as long as it is holding above that, the market might have a chance of moving higher. But if it moves back below that level, that would suggest that this could very easily lead to an even bigger correction. So you can see that basically what I'm saying is we've come back to test the previous break line on the channel. So that level there is exactly what is being tested right now. And for the market to stay healthy, it needs to stay above that line. Otherwise, if it drifts back below that area, we could have some form of this type of a move, at least to show that the market is coming back, failing to hold above the break level, and now potential for a pullback. Now on this daily chart for the Nasdaq, we can see that some of the price targets could be maybe to test this recent low here. Maybe if the market pulls back, it is going to test the recent lows on a daily closing basis right there, or maybe even to test this intraday lows of August 24th. So depending on which way and how big of a correction we might get, this might be some of my initial targets based on how severe any pullback might be. Let's take a look at a long-term monthly view for the Nasdaq. Just want to show you an odd view or an interesting view. If you take the highs of 2000, highs of 2007 on the RSI for the Nasdaq, extend that line, it should look something like that, and it gives you a very interesting reference point, which is the fact that once the market moved above that line, we went into a major rally. So this during this phase, so we came back and successfully tested that line, as you can see, and that back test is what happened this past month. Nice support. So clearly what is going on here is, as long as the market can hold above this blue line on the monthly, then the Nasdaq has a chance of moving higher. Now we have to watch this as we go into a new month, because if we break below that line, that's going to be a major sell signal. And the reason why I say that could be a major sell signal is because if you take a look at where the break would take place, the break would take place somewhere around there. Now keep in mind that the last couple of major bear markets began with a break below that line. So we broke below here in 2000, somewhere around there, and we went into a major correction. We broke below here in 2007 before we had the crash of 2008. And now if we come and break this same level, that would suggest that there's a possibility of this market actually behaving a little bit to the downside, if not into a major bear market. So keep that in mind. Again, let me just show you that level. It's a very simple level here. It so happens to be around 61.8 on the monthly chart for the Nasdaq. The major corrections began with the break here in 2000. Another break took place here in about late 2007. So if we get another break here, and it's a big if, then that is when the market is really gonna be looking like it's about to go into a major bear market. But for now, we have to be practical in the sense that because the market hasn't shown any break, and we are looking at this very good test and a back test support that took place this past month, as long as this line is holding, then the market is okay. It is okay to look for long side opportunities. Let's take a look at a 3-year weekly chart for the Dow, and we go back to the lows of 2012 on a week. And again, the so the closing low there, November of 2012, intraday low there, and a recent weekly closing low, you get a straight line, something like that. And you can see what the market is doing here is coming back, and this is, in my opinion, a back test of this line. So if we fail around this level here, failure to hold above that level would suggest that more than likely the next swing trade in the market on a week-to-week basis is probably going to be down. Just like the Dow on the weekly chart for the, just like the Nasdaq, the weekly chart for the Dow right now is showing the same area of resistance. You can see the RSI has come back to exactly where it could stall. Resistance on this blue line will suggest that the market is gonna have to take a move lower before it can ever move higher. For there to be a nice move higher, the market needs to clear that very well defined line of resistance. So now we're looking at resistance. Indication there is that more than likely we stall around here. Keep in mind that the market is coming back to test that level. It seems to be failing. You can see that since the break right here in, let's call it May, since May, that break, the market has been lower. In fact, that corresponds with the highs of the Dow in May, and since then we've had two levels of resistance. There was resistance here in July for those highs there, and now we are looking at potential resistance on the same level. So the weekly chart here for the Dow, in my opinion, suggests more than likely there's a pullback that the market is trying to conceal. Let's take a look here at the daily for the Dow, and there's an argument that one can make that the market did break out either during this move here, which explains one of the reasons why the market has had a nice run. That's one level, and as long as the market is holding above this on the daily, there's an argument that can be made that the market should be okay over time, even with pullbacks. And so let's just keep that in mind. This was a good breakout. You can see that breakout led to a nice move in the market since that move. And so as long as the market is holding above this, there's an argument there that the market should be relatively okay. Having said that, the one thing that is a problem with this chart is this formation here. This seems like a double top on the RSI for the Dow. The problem with that double top is that it is coming exactly at about 69.1, and because of that double rejection at 69.1, that could be a bad sign. So we have on one hand short-term sell signal, and yet this trend continues to be intact because the breakout already took place on the Dow. So we have short-term resistance. Maybe the market is going to pull back to back test this line on the daily. If we take a look at the Dow Hourly, after the close on Friday, we can see that it is coming back to test this line, connecting recent RSI lows. So depending on how we begin the week, if we can find support on this line, then there is an argument there that we start the week with a nice move. Otherwise, a break of that recent RSI trend line would suggest that we start the week on a down tick. Keep in mind that I'm using RSI period of 26. If this chart looks a little bit different from yours, on the hourly, RSI period of 26 gives you this chart here where the market has come back, did close exactly on the support line. Support on that line is good. A break of that line would suggest we start the week with a little bit of a pullback. Let's take a look at the 30-minute chart for the Dow. And we can see here in the last 30 minutes of the day, the market on Friday did move below 50. As you move below 50, you get a big swing. And also the market did close exactly on the support line, connecting recent RSI lows. I mean, interesting how these things play out. So Friday's close came exactly right there. So depending on whether we break at the beginning of the week and have another continued push lower, or if the market finds support to begin the week, maybe with support and a bounce to the upside. So the fact that the market closed exactly on the line, it's anybody's guess whether we are going to get support or we are going to break through for a short-term move lower. Let's take a look at a 3-year weekly chart for the Dow Transports. Just one slight observation, and I think that's a critical observation, is ever since we started this nice move here from about 5,000 all the way to 9,000 in about 2 years, all this move during this nice phase, the market was using the 50 level for support on its way to a nice all-time high. Also here we see support at the 50. So we can see that the market uses the 50 RSI level to bounce. Now we are looking at probably the early signs of a different market. Here we are seeing that the market is now using the 50 for resistance during this high here, and again the 50 here with a double top being used as resistance, which might suggest that maybe we are now seeing confirmation that this market has entered a different phase, and the phase now is going to be more than likely pointing to lower prices, just because of the way what was support at the 50 level has now turned into resistance. So support on the way up. Unfortunately now, for those who are bullish, it seems like the market is showing us that now the 50 level is becoming resistance. So just keep that in mind. That might suggest that net this market is pointing down in the coming weeks and probably even months. Take a look at the S&P 500 weekly, and again we see the same resistance. If you take the top side of the weekly RSI, this is becoming strong resistance. As long as the market is showing resistance here, we should expect a pullback. And just like the other markets, we can see that what was a break. So that break took place here, and that was in early August for this break there. If we extend the same line, you can see that the market is trying to hold above that line. If it moves back below that line, that's where you can expect a stall point. So that's another layer of resistance, and another layer of resistance coming from this line right here because of the recent break off the highs in May. So the market made a high right there in May, and we see that it broke down right there, and that break since then the market has been coming back to the red line and showing resistance. And so here we are again. The more we confirm this as resistance, the more we are going to see the market pull back in the RSI, and also as far as the price is concerned. Take a look at the daily chart for the S&P 500. Just want to point out here that it looks like we were unable to trade above 69.1. In fact, it looks like a double top short term, and failure to move above 69.1 on the daily might suggest again that, in my opinion, more than likely this market is due for some type of a pullback. Also on the S&P 500, we made a slight higher high on the hourly chart, and yet the RSI made a lower low. So that could also be setting up for a market that wants to pull back based on that negative divergence on the hourly. Let's take a look at Apple here as a representative of some of the large cap tech names, and it looks like it is also showing resistance on the weekly. So this is 3 years worth of data. Take a look at this line here that recently broke down. So the market broke down as far as Apple is concerned here, which is off this highs there. And if you extend the same line, you can see that the market is struggling to hold above that level. If that is the case and the market can't move above that backtest line, then it is going to be suggesting lower prices. So that's one resistance level. The other resistance level is take the top side of the weekly RSI, draw a straight line. Again, you see that the market needs to break out above this line. Otherwise, if this is confirmed as resistance, then that would suggest that prices have to come down. If you're an Apple bull, then you need this line to be broken out to the upside, the market to take out this line. Otherwise, resistance would suggest lower prices. So that's the other view, which is the second line of, and there is a third line of resistance, which is this break level here. Extend that line like that. You can see that this is what is being tested. If this is confirmed as resistance in the coming week or so, then that would suggest that we should expect resistance in the RSI on the weekly, and for the market to drop. In fact, I would say expect a big down week, because if it moves back below 50, it's going to have a big down week, as is normally the case. So again, 3 levels of resistance on Apple. Number 1 is the backtest line here. Number 2 is the high, the line connecting the highs, like that. And then number 3 is this line here where it has been struggling. So straight right there. So 3 lines. And so if all those lines show resistance, expect the stock to pull back. Otherwise, bulls would like to see the market take out those 3 lines. Right now we are looking at resistance. I would suggest that it tells us that the market wants to pull back. Take a look at this daily chart for Apple. Number 1, it's coming back to test the 200-day moving average. All right, so it dropped below the 200-day moving average there. It did show resistance there. It's come all the way back to test the 200-day moving average. If it can't move above that short term, that might spook some people. They might start selling. That's one view on the daily. On the RSI, we see that it has been struggling around this level here. So if we draw a line around right there, it gives you a lot of information where the stock has been struggling. You can see here, short-term high, if not the intraday high. Resistance there, almost like a double top, gave you that high. Very obvious resistance there for that high. And now we are looking at the potential of forming a double top. Now, if that's the case, then this would suggest that Apple more than likely is due for a pullback. Maybe a serious pullback, maybe not, who knows. We'll have to wait for that, but it suggests that more than likely if this is confirmed as resistance, then we should expect lower prices. Clearly, if the market is to take the stock higher, then it needs to move above that red line, something we haven't seen yet. So in conclusion, this past month we saw the market have a nice return of 8%, nice move in October, because the market held that 50 level on the monthly RSI. So one thing we have to observe is just as long as the market is trading above 50 and holding above 50, the market should be relatively okay. The problem is if it starts moving low, and especially if it breaks to fresh 3-year lows. If it breaks to fresh 3-year lows, be warned, that would suggest that now we are entering a bearish phase. So above 50 the market is okay. If it breaks to 3-year lows, that's going to be another sell signal, just like when we broke to fresh 3-year lows about 3 months ago. When we broke to fresh 3-year lows here, the market had a serious move lower. So as long as we are above 50, that's good. The risk is if we break back below 50 and make a fresh low on the monthly RSI, that's going to be a major sell signal. So I think the weekly charts, dailies, and the weekly charts and the daily charts are showing a market that might pull back. Otherwise, we'll see what the new month of November is gonna bring. Eric Muadid, muadid.com. Enjoy your weekend. As always, good luck, peace, and blessings. E-A-C-S.